South Carolina versus Alabama, 12 p.m. Eastern, ABC. It's going to be a 21-point spread for Alabama. And you know, for Bama is this is your next test. This is your next test for Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
Beating teams fans expect you to beat with style round two. You didn't pass round one. That was Vanderbilt. This is round two. Can Bama do that? And what does that look like when it comes to beating teams with style points like this?
Yeah. They're going to have to win with style points, like you said, to get the fans happy. I've just been seeing so much Kalen DeBoer debate online, whether it comes to his close or defensive, on the defensive side, the play calling there and players doing podcasts in the week. You have to come out and perform in this game. We know the offense is going to play well. They've played well in every game so far this year. It's been the defense trying to kind of keep up. And in a game like this, what I'm looking for is I want to see, and what you're looking for in a game like this is Alabama making defensive adjustments at half, defensive adjustments throughout the game to combat what South Carolina has. They have something similar to what Vanderbilt did. They have a running quarterback system that gave Alabama trouble last week. So what do you do going into the game this week? Hopefully you watch the film and do better than you did against Vanderbilt. You bring different looks. The defense isn't working, so you have to show something different. And this is a good game to do it in because I think from an offensive standpoint, I don't think South Carolina looks as strong as some other teams that Alabama will play. So you have the opportunity maybe to throw some of those different looks out at a lower risk scenario.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the story of the season, right? Throwing some of those looks out defensively. We've seen it on the offensive side for Alabama. They kind of held back some of their play calling in preparation for the game against Bama, and we saw that pay off from the offensive side. And so, like you said, the story for Bama fans that follow this closely has been what should we expect from a defensive improvement perspective. I think if you're a casual Bama watcher or a football watcher, you looked at Bama's offensive efficiency in the high scoring of their top four in the conference right now when it comes to points per game. And you're thinking, oh, this is the same old Bama. But I think people that really watch Bama closely have been looking at the defensive performance. On the other side for South Carolina, it's really, can this defense is this defense able to slow down Jalen Milroe? We haven't seen many teams this country do that. A lot of runs for Milroe last game and against Georgia where he was barely getting touched. I think we saw a 19-yard scamper in the last game, design run. So I expect to see more of that. But it's really, what can South Carolina do to combat that? We didn't see that against Jackson Dart. Yeah. And from a passing perspective, they slowed him down rushing wise a little bit. He only had 55 yards. But will they be able to slow him down? And will that matter with this offensive output?
Yeah.
South Carolina's offense has looked very anemic. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think the defense has potential to do it in places. It's going to depend on Alabama making the right reads. They have a great pass rush. We've seen the South Carolina pass rush be effective. Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard, they're doing their thing. Nick Emanwari is kind of the guy for them that's going to be that roaming safety around the field. They've used him in every position pretty much at a safety can play. And, he's going to be the one looking out for some of these big plays that Alabama's been getting, over the top to Ryan Williams, Jalen Milroe taking off. So I would expect him to be watching for some of those bigger plays. Right now, Alabama's starting to fire with all their weapons. We saw it last week. They got Ryan Williams, not his best game, but he still had, almost 100 yards and a touchdown.
In half
Jeremy
a game,
Bernard,
pretty much.
Yeah. Cole Adams, Kobe Prentice might be out this week, but Alabama is starting to get more and more guys involved. If they can get the running game involved, I don't think there's a way for South Carolina to slow them down because I think the running game's been lacking just a little bit from the Alabama side.
It definitely has. I mean, we saw, I think Jam Miller had a touchdown last week. Justice Haynes, he may have had one as well. I know for sure Jam did. It's going off my memory there. And, for South Carolina, the keys to this game is going to be controlling the possession of the football and limiting turnovers. Get back to that rushing offense that we saw against Kentucky, that we saw, against Akron, other teams where Raheem Sanders is getting his. And LaNorris Sellers is getting his like he was against LSU. If you get back to that performance against a Alabama defense that has shown LSU-like gaps when it comes to stopping, Vanderbilt is top 4 in the conference when it comes to points scored. So they're a high-powered offense, but Alabama showed that there's opportunities to rush on this offense. And so that's where South Carolina keys this game. Control the possession, because Bama will take advantage of those turnovers and score on them. And here in the new SC podcast, taking advantage of turnovers means scoring on them, not running the clock out. And also establishing a run early to control the time of possession. That was what, again, blueprint Vanderbilt game. They had the ball for 40 plus minutes. So it's hard for Bama to beat you when they don't have the ball. And that's what South Carolina has done well. Last key for them is getting some resemblance and familiarity of a passing game. Right now, LaNorris Sellers only has 2 touchdowns in the year in the air. So if he can use his feet to kind of get him warmed up, create more opportunities in the box, get the box crowded with that rushing game, that allows them to take more passes over the top and potentially make this a close game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you mentioned it, getting the running game going, I think is going to bring the linebackers out of their comfortable positions. For Alabama, they're playing a lot of, sending 4 for pressure, dropping everybody else into man coverage, keeping the linebackers kind of central in the middle. If you can establish an effective running game with your quarterback and your running back, those linebackers, now you have opportunity to get your receivers the ball in that one-on-one coverage across the middle, which South Carolina will be needing to do in this game. For Alabama, The keys, I think, is just to mix up your defensive looks. It looked very, very similar last week against Vanderbilt all game. Vanderbilt had the keys. They knew what they needed to do to beat them, and they made the right decisions to do it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to give South Carolina the opportunity to test match you.
Yeah.
You want to be discreet, coming with unique plays, and that's going to be the key to Alabama. I think that right now the fire's under them. You never want to play a team after a loss right now in the SEC. No. And some teams are going to have to do it this week. UMass with Missouri, Florida with Tennessee, here, South Carolina having to play Alabama. And I think Alabama is going to be too strong, and this one gets back on track defensively. I like Alabama 48-17 covering the spread.
I like that. And you really did a good job of kind of depicting, why we expect this Alabama defense to look better, talking about some of those looks in this game. I like Alabama 40-24. I expect some defensive improvement, but I think that South Carolina is able to get some points on the board, probably a touchdown in the first half, maybe 2 touchdowns, a couple of field goals in the second half. That would have Alabama, from my notes, hitting the over 64 points. But they would not cover in this game, the 21-point spread. So last question for you. Does Bama need to cover to keep Roll Tide Nation at bay? Not from a monetarily standpoint, but from a game domination standpoint.
It depends on if it's a we didn't score enough and it's 3-24 or something. I think that doesn't sting as much as if it becomes a 45-36 game or something. Like, you don't want that, because I think everyone's question right now is like, is this, you sent it to me, we were talking about this earlier, like this Alabama team feels like Lincoln Riley Pac-12, like the offense just has to score in spite of the defense. You don't want that. You don't want to feel that going into games like you're playing against Tennessee.
We saw a little bit of that in that Bryce Young year too. But this, of course, we have our predictions. We both picked Bama. Like I said, I had them hitting the over, but I think we both didn't have Bama covering. Interesting question. I think the expectations for a school like Bama is you got to dominate teams like South Carolina and Vanderbilt. And I'm not saying it's fair, but I know that's how the fans think.
Ole Miss did it, so it's important that you kind of go out and do it too, because we know that it's possible to do it to the South Carolina team.